All right. I am going to try something new, which is to try something I haven't done in a while, actually, which is go live and read a poem that I've never read and explore it. And the idea is to help you kind of see the value of this kind of thing. I am going to, there's that, a lot of people I think are intimidated by poetry when they really shouldn't be. And what I want to show and what my goal is to just go from the very beginnings of a poem that I've never read before and go through it. Now, I do want to say that the way that I've set this up is one, I've chosen a poet that I like and I've read a good amount before. And I actually used this 1852 version that I have, which is an old version of his collected works done 2 years after he died, which is in 1850. This is one of the greatest poets of all time, William Wordsworth. And what, I actually literally just kind of opened it up and at a random page. And I liked that it was in the section called Poems of the Imagination. One of the things that's great about Wordsworth and other poets is other romantic poets is that they really elevated the individual human mind and imagination and fancy and what was possible for an individual separated from society in a sense, like just a person. So, I don't expect a lot of people to watch, but if you're commenting, if you're here, please comment. This is an experiment to kind of try this and see if anybody likes it. I might do it a couple of times and see if anybody enjoys it. So because I know it's Wordsworth, I know that he tinkered throughout his life. The version I have, the one, this 1852 version, is likely the last published version. That's how my understanding. So the poem is called Beggars. Beggars. And, he tinkered throughout his life. I'm going to read the poem and, the 1807 version first, and then we'll see if there's time, depending on how I feel or whatever. We might do the 1852. I want to warn you though, that, if you're watching this later or whatever, when I go through this, I don't know. I don't think I have any interesting insights at first. And that I kind of want to, if you have an insight, if you're watching, then comment and I'll see it. But I go through poetry pretty slowly and I try and see what there is. I'll just start by, let me pop it up on the screen here. I'll just start by saying that, if you can see it, let me know. Hopefully you don't have any problems with the reading of the text. But I don't have any inclination as to what it's going to look like right now, the poem itself. The reason I chose it was something struck me, and I really encourage people to do this. It's a wonderful practice of poetry, and adding a little bit of poetry in your life is don't feel obligated to read and explore the first one that the first poem that you just read or whatever and have like an obligation of buying an anthology and I have to read every poem. No, you should really explore the poems and find one that strikes you. And I really encourage you to do this, wait for that striking incident. And I take it as very similar to meeting a person. When you meet a person, you immediately feel this kind of, I like this person or I don't like this person, versus, somebody you've met for many, many years, which is a completely different experience to, meet an old friend at a coffee shop that you haven't seen for 15 years or 5 years or whatever. That's very different. That's revisiting an old poem. Reading a new poem is like meeting a new friend or a new person, not a friend, just a new person. So that's what we're going to do. Let's try this. I have no idea if I'm even going to like this poem. It's possible it doesn't resonate with me, but I tend to like Wordsworth. So, okay. So it's called Beggars, 1807. She had a tall man's height or more. And this is what struck me about the poem. So let me just read the whole poem and then we'll go through it. But that first line is what struck me when I did read that part of it, which I read, that's why I chose it. As the first couple lines, I was like, she had a tall man's height or more. I was like, what does that mean? That's an interesting, I wanted to explore what he was meaning by this beggar. And also, to be honest, like, I don't think of beggars as women very often. So it's like, obviously they are, but it was just, that also struck me, just the fact that she was a woman in the story. Okay. So Beggars, 1807, she had a tall man's height or more. Her face from summer's noontide heat, no bonnet shaded, but she wore a mantle to her very feet, descending with a graceful flow, and on her head a cap as white as new fallen snow. Her skin was of Egyptian brown. Interesting. Haughty, as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Her skin was of Egyptian brown, haughty, as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. She towered, fit person for a queen, to lead those ancient Amazonian files, or ruling bandits, wife among the Grecian isles. Advancing, forth she stretched her hand, and begged an alm with doleful plea, that ceased not on our English land, such woes I knew could never be. And yet a boon I gave her, for the creature was beautiful to see, a weed of glorious feature. Interesting. All right. I left her and pursued my way, and soon before me did espy a pair of little boys at play, chasing a crimson butterfly. Let's conceal that. Ooh. The taller followed with his hat in hand, wreathed round with yellow flowers, the gayest of the land. The other wore a rimless crown, with leaves of laurel stuck about. And while both followed up and down, each whooping with a merry shout, in their fraternal features I could trace unquestionable lines of that wild suppliant's face. Yet they, so blithe of heart, seemed fit for finest tasks of earth or air. Wings let them have, and they might flit, precursors to Aurora's car, scattering fresh flowers, though happier far, I ween, to hunt their fluttering game o'er rock and level green. They dart across my path, but lo, each ready with a plaintive whine, said I, not half an hour ago your mother has had alms of mine. That cannot be, one answered, she is dead. I looked reproof, they saw, but neither hung his head. She has been dead, sir, many a day. Hush, boys, you're telling me a lie. It was your mother, as I say. And in the twinkling of an eye, come, come, cried one, and without more ado, off to some other play, the joyous vagrants flew. Okay. Like I said, if you're, joining now or joining after midway. So what I'm doing is reading the poem and trying to explore it as a first time reading so you can see the process. I don't really know that much of what just happened. So this is my first inclination. And again, if you're watching this, send a comment of what you think. But so I think it's really interesting. It's about beggars, it's plural in the final version, the older version I have, 1852. It's all, you can't see that. It's also plural. So that's not accidental for sure. So it's not just about this woman. She had a tall man's height or more. But it's also about these boys. And that kind of threw me off about where the children come from or what they're all about. So let's explore this a little bit more slowly. Now I do have my pen, because it's important to write down notes and, explore the language. Because if you don't know something, don't be afraid. Or if you kind of know a word, don't be afraid. Just read it. Just read it out loud. Write it down. I got my handy dandy yellow notebook. This is how you read a poem, and explore the work. That's what's beautiful about poetry. It's not just about reading it once. That's literally a waste of time. You should not read poetry if you're just going to read it once. What you want to do is find one that strikes you and then read it and then spend time with it. The analogy is meeting a person in a busy room. You walk around, if you're networking and you meet somebody. When someone strikes your fancy, you try to push them aside. Don't push them, but you try to move aside so you have isolated moment, and you talk to them. You explore who they are. You ask them questions. You maybe even say a little bit about yourself, which you should do with a poem as well. That's how you read a poem. You read a poem and a poem reads you. That's really important. So anyway, I did my first reading. You noticed that I stumbled through it if you were there for it. And that's okay. That's part of the process. So I don't know what any of this means yet. All I know is that there's a beggar, she's a woman, and there's 2 children. I loved his second stanza on my first reading. There was something about going from, the idea that it's a beggar woman, that she is this woman, and then it moves into this Egyptian, this is very Wordsworthian. He starts with just this image of this vagrant, this, I think the last word is vagrant, or what's the last word? Yeah, vagrants with the kids. She starts with this beggar woman who I think most of us would walk by, not think very much of, maybe even kind of like go like this, and he brings this whole kind of world, her inner world out. That's why Wordsworth was so important as an intellectual philosopher poet, or poet philosopher really, is because he was one of the first ones to really, really spend time with just your normal people, not just beggars, but just normal people, as well as kings and big figures, which is all that it was before, and to bring life to individuality, which is what he did really well. So she had a tall man's height or more. So what do we got here? A kind of heroic beggar. This is not an ordinary beggar. Wordsworth is doing something, he does constantly. Her face from summer's noontide heat, no bonnet shaded, but she wore a mantle to her very feet. Hi, C.C. Thompson. Thank you for being here. If you read this poem, you can find it. You can find the poem. Help me understand it, because I do not know this poem. I am exploring it for the first time. So usually when I do a video, I don't do it like this. So I would love to get anybody's thoughts to help me out, because I'll sometimes refer to other people to help me. But okay, let's get back to it. So she had a tall man's height or more. That is what struck me about the poem at first and why I wanted to read it, right? So what does it mean to have a tall man's height or more? I think it elevates the woman. This beggar who, again, we wouldn't think much of. Her face from summer's noon. So she's a woman who's outside a lot. This is 1807. So this is an era when, women are encouraged, especially ladies are encouraged to go inside. So it's a very contrast. She's a worldly, woman that's outside a lot. She's getting a lot of sun, no bonnet shaded. So she's not a wealthy woman, but she wore a mantle. So I don't know what the mantle is. I know what a mantle is. So I'm writing this down because, again, I always write down words, even if I know them, and then I'll look it up to make sure what are all the various meanings of it. Because a lot of times we take for granted. So a sleeveless cloak or anything. Okay. Yeah. So it just conceals something. So she has some kind of cloak that just conceals her whole body. She wore a mantle to her very feet, descending with a graceful flow, and on her head a cap as white as new fallen snow. So again, Wordsworth really endows her with a lot of dignity, right? And you could see that from the second stanza, and this really struck me. Her skin was of Egyptian brown. I don't think there was anything racist in this, but maybe. Maybe it is. She's a foreigner in he's probably in England, the Lake District or London. In 1807, London would make sense. Haughty, as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. I loved that, because listen to the sound of it. So think about what's going on here. A light. Her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. What does the word throne sound like? Like Game of Thrones, right? It sounds like a throne. And I think it's supposed to do that. So her skin was Egyptian brown. So he's giving her this, we'd see this woman, and then he gives her this elevation of royalty, regality. Her skin was of Egyptian brown, haughty as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. So the literal verb is thrown. The light is thrown of what she's seeing. Her skin, haughty as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. She towered, fit person for a queen. So this is a tall woman. It's a tall woman with a mantle all the way down to her feet, but she's a beggar. To lead those ancient Amazonians, my favorite Amazonian is Penthesilea. So I love Penthesilea. She's the one who Achilles kills, and as he's killing her, he falls in love with her. It's one of the most famous, a very famous story, or used to be a very famous story when we Westerners used to believe in love a little bit and craziness of high romance. Although that's a crazy story, to fall in love with a woman as you're killing her, right? Okay, but or ruling bandit's wife among the Grecian Isles. So she's not just she's a beggar queen. She's an Amazonian. She's an Egyptian, she's an Egyptian queen. And then of course that line, man, I just can't get that out of my think about that. As if her eye had seen its own light. So she's seeing a reflection of her light or something. Its own light to a distance thrown. Oh, I love that. Thrown. Okay, I got to get over that. But I love it. I mean, as it's distance thrown and it sounds like a throne, you get it. Okay, let's move on. We'll be here all day with that. Advancing forth, she stretched her hand. I'll use this hand. She stretched her hand and begged an alms with doleful plea. Now, I definitely know the word doleful, but that's what I'm going to look up just to make sure. I mean, what's doleful like? Let me see. I like to use my brain, my minor amounts of my brain that I can and memory. Doleful, like sad is all I can think of. Some kind of pitiful sadness. Let's see. What does it mean? Doleful. Filled with expressing or causing grief. Okay, filled with expressing or causing grief, sorrow, or deep sadness. Typically used to describe facial expressions, moods, or sounds. That's the feeling I got. Melancholy is a common synonym. Yeah. So alms with doleful pleas. That ceased not on our English land such woes I knew could never be. Hopefully let me make sure I look at that. Punctuation is very important in good poetry. Modern poetry, not so much. That's why I get frustrated with modern poetry. Advancing, forth she stretched her hand and begged an alms with doleful plea that ceased not. So she's going from person to person doing this. Not on our English land such woes I knew could never be. On our English, so is he not in England? On our English land such woes I knew could never be. Interesting. I don't know. And yet a boon I gave her, for the creature was beautiful to see, a weed of glorious feature. So I don't know. I'm assuming he is in England. That on our English land, such woes I knew could never be. Such woes. So maybe he was just speaking highly of England. I don't know. That's interesting. But what I get out of that is, and yet a boon. So I know the word boon, I'm going to write it down anyway, but that's like giving her, good, bountiful, amount of money. Like it's in this context, I think gave her something. And I gave her, for the creature was beautiful to see. So I like that. Like she's begging for alms, but she's giving him something, right? By being beautiful, or at least beautiful to him. He's seeing the beauty in her. He's seeing this by, the distant throne of this Amazonian queen. She's got the stature of all that. And she was beautiful to see, a weed of glorious feature. Now, I have a house here in Texas, and the HOA is telling me that the grass that looks like grass to me is actually weeds. I'm like, these are weeds? They look like grass. But okay. All right, so we have weeds that are grass. So I don't, a glorious feature. We think of weeds as just getting in the way, but sometimes weeds can be pretty. They can be, worthwhile. I left her and pursued. Can you see where I am? There we go. I left her and pursued my way, and soon before me did espy a pair of little boys at play, chasing a crimson butterfly. It's so Wordsworthian, chasing a butterfly. The taller followed with his hat in hand, wreathed round with yellow flowers, the gayest of the land. You guys can't see all of that, the gayest of the land. But that's, again, very Wordsworthian as well, that kind of alliteration. Wreathed round with yellow flowers, the gayest of the land. So let's see, what's the image here? Thinking about the this is how my mind works. I just go back and forth until I understand the poem. But thinking about a weed of glorious feature, I imagine what he's talking about there is her wildness. Okay. And then we get two more weeds, these kids, right? So he leaves her, pursued my way, and soon before did espy, so he sees a pair of little boys at play, chasing a crimson butterfly. The taller followed with his hat in hand. So I guess he's another beggar, wreathed round with yellow flowers, the gayest of the land. So he's got this wreath of flowers, or all these flowers in his hair, this young boy. So this really makes me think imagistically. The imagery is pagans, like ancient pagan Greek gods in the forest, and they're just one with nature. And I think he has some Greek references here, like. There's, reference to the goddess of the dawn. So let's get to that. So one has this wreath. The other wore a rimless crown. So there we go with the throne, the crown, the wreath. He's really giving these beggars, these vagrants, elevated stature. And this is in 1807. He is one of the first romantics in England, and one of the first in the world. And this is his romanticism, this making an ordinary person into this kind of kingly creature. And leaves with laurel, the other wore a rimless crown with leaves of laurel stuck about. It's a very wild image. And while both followed up and down, each whooping with a merry shout, in their fraternal features I could trace unquestionable lines of that wild suppliant's face. Oh, okay. So right there, I assume he's making the connection that's the beggar he saw at the beginning, right? So he sees this beggar, she's walking around, he sees her as beautiful, so he gives her a boon. I left her and pursued my way, and soon before me did espy a pair of little boys at play, chasing a crimson butterfly. The taller followed me with his hat in his hand, wreathed round with yellow flowers. The other wore a rimless crown, the leaves of laurel stuck about, and while both followed up and down, each whooping with a merry shout. In their fraternal features I could trace unquestionable lines of that wild suppliant's face. So suppliant is a suppliant, like the beggar is what a suppliant is. When you're a suppliant, I'm still writing it down because I want to see if there's other definitions and other meanings. That's one reason. That's one, many reasons to explore poetry besides its beauty, but another one is just expanding your understanding of the world, understanding of words and concepts, because we sometimes just take surface level definitions and understanding of a word when words have so much complexity, connotation, and denotation. That's what poetry really shines. So something that specifically is someone who makes a humble, earnest, and respectful plea or petition to someone in power, or the act of begging in a submissive, entreating manner. And there's a bunch of different petitioner, suitor, applicant. This is a modern definition. So if I were to do like a video on this, I would do I would look up definitions of older definitions how in the 19th century this word might have been taken, because it is going to be different, obviously a little bit. Yet they, that's interesting, it puts it in quotes of some sort, yet they, so blithe of heart, so blithe is another good word I like to check out. Blithe of heart, seemed fit for finest tasks of earth or air. So like light of heart, right? Like they're careless of heart. Is that what that's meaning? Give me some help, guys. Give me some comments of what you think these means, because I don't know. I'm still exploring. If you're just joining us, I'm just exploring this that I've never read before. This is a poem called Beggars. Yet they, so blithe of heart, seemed fit for finest tasks of earth or air. So that makes me think that he's categorizing them as gods. Okay, right? Like, because he's saying that they're fit for finest tasks of earth or air. Like they're angels, is how I think of that. Wings let them have, yeah, right? And they might fit precursors of Aurora's car. So the goddess of the dawn, and she would have had a car to help bring the dawn. And he thinks that these two kids match that. Scattering fresh flowers, though happier far, I ween, to hunt their fluttering game o'er rock and level green. I ween. I mean, I think I know what that word means, but let me look up blithe real quick. Let me see if there's anything interesting. That blithe I need a better dictionary than the one that's on the internet. The one that's on the internet always sucks, but we're in a hurry. So carefree, lighthearted, and joyous. Okay, that's what I thought. Someone who's casual, unconcerned, and heedless of potential. Okay, that's what I said. All right. Ween definition. What do we got? Archaic or poetic verb. To think, suppose, or believe. Okay. While it dates back to Old English, it is rarely used in modern conversation. Well, let's bring it back. All right. Ween. I ween. I think, I suppose, I believe. Let's go for it. Okay. I ween to hunt. So he's thinking about, he's contemplating them. To hunt their fluttering game or rock and level green. So what's going on? What do you think's going on? Hold on. So he sees them as these two blithe characters, joyous but carefree. They're like angels, precursors to Aurora's car. So they're like in front of it, helping it fly, maybe. Scatter, to bring the dawn. Scattering fresh flowers through happier far, I ween, think, to hunt. So he's hunting their fluttering game or rock. So he's hunting after the angelicness of them, is what I'm getting from that. They dart across my path, but lo, each ready with a plaintive whine, said I. They dart across my path. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm overthinking it. So just a simple imagery of them running in front of this poet, Wordsworth himself, because it's in his perspective. He's the one saying this. So they dart across my path, but lo, each ready with a plaintive whine, said I. So they're begging from him. Said I, not half an hour ago your mother has had alms of mine. That cannot be, one answered. She is dead. I looked reproof. They saw, but neither hung his head. Dead head. She has been dead, sir, many a day. Hush, boys, you're telling me a lie. It was your mother, as I say. And in the twinkling of an eye, come, come, cried one, and without more ado, off to some other play the joyous vagrants flew. Another reason to read poetry is that it helps you with your diction, because mine is flawed. So, here's the question, because I don't have an answer to this. So if you stuck around for any of this, what do you think? Are the boys lying? Because I think there are two, there's a couple different definitions or interpretations. Perhaps they simply wish to escape the conversation, so they lie. Hush, boys, you're telling me a lie. But he was very convinced that the mother was their mother. The woman is, so is it something that he's missing? I don't know. Yeah, I think that they're lying. this is my first interpretation. They're lying. They're vagrants trying to get some extra money from him. He knows it. He already gave to the women, but he's not giving to the kids because they lied to him. That's an easy understanding. I also recognize that there's probably something underlying all of this. And I don't know what it is on my first reading. So that's just my honest answer is I don't know what the answer is right away. But I really like this poem because I like the imagery of the woman. I like the imagery of the boys. And I love that line, as if her eye had seen its own light to a distant throne. I love that because it feels like a distant throne. It feels like that. But but it also has the verb of thrown in it at a distance. So I've already explained that. The beggar woman becomes an Amazon, a queen, a bandit's wife. The boys are attendants of Aurora, and they're creatures with wings. They're mythological beings. So he's really adding so much to these people who are just poor vagrants wandering around playing games and trying to make some money. All right. So I guess real quick, I don't know if I'm going to do an analysis of it, but real quick, just to see if there's any differences, I want to read the 1852 version. And Wordsworth tinkered a lot. So this is him tinkering throughout his life to get to this version. This is the version that was published after his death or at the end of his life. Before my eyes a wanderer stood. So that's already very different. So the wanderer versus she had a tall man's height or more. So notice the perspective change. She had a tall man's height. So he's just describing her. And we're just struck by this description. That really struck me. Now it's from his perspective. Before my eyes, a wanderer stood. And it's even a little bit more abstract to say a wanderer stood versus she had a tall man's height or more, which is, again, striking, but it also gives you a kind of visual. Okay, I know what a man's height is, I guess, and I have a vision of a 6-foot man, and then she's taller. Her face from summer's noonday heat, nor bonnet shaded, nor the hood of that blue cloak which to her feet depended with a graceful flow. Only she wore a cap as white as new fallen snow. Her skin was of Egyptian brown, haughty as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. She towered, fit for a queen to head those ancient Amazonian files. Is that the same? Hold on. To lead. Wait, did I read that wrong? To head? Is that what it says in my version? Hold on. No bonnet shaded. Her skin was of Egyptian brown, haughty as if her eye had seen its own light to a distance thrown. She towered, fit for a queen. To head. It is to head. Interesting. To head those ancient. So just lead. So to head instead of to lead. To head those ancient Amazonian files, or ruling bandit's wife among the Grecian isles. Before me begging did she stand. Wow, this is quite different. Pouring out sorrows like a sea, grief after grief on English land, such woes I knew could never be. Yet a boon I gave her. So he doesn't believe that she's real. This is like now turning into more of a memory in his imagination in the memory. And yet a boon I gave her, because he says, before me begging did she stand, pouring out sorrows like a sea, grief after grief on English land, such woes I knew could never be. And yet a boon I gave her, for the creature was beautiful to see, a weed of glorious feature. I left her and pursued my way, and soon before me did espy a pair of little boys at play, chasing a crimson butterfly. The taller followed with his hat in hand, wreathed round with yellow flowers, the gayest of the land. The other wore a rimless crown, with leaves of laurel stuck about. And while both followed up and down, each whooping with the merry shout, in their fraternal features I could trace unquestionable lines of that wild suppliant's face. Yet, see, make sure you guys can still see. Yet they, so blithe of heart, seemed fit for finest tasks of earth or air. Wings let them have, and they might flit, precursors to Aurora's car. Scattering fresh flowers, though happier far, I ween, to hunt their fluttering game o'er rock and level green. That's all the same. They dart across my path, but lo, each ready with a plaintive whine. Yeah, when I said it just now, it made me think of like a certain kind of bottle of wine, but okay. Said I, not half an hour ago, your mother has had alms of mine. That cannot be, one answered, she is dead. I looked reproof. They saw, but neither hung his head. She has been dead, sir, many a day. Sweet boys, heaven hears that rash reply. It was your mother, as I say. And in the twinkling of an eye, come, come, cried one, and without more ado, off to some other play the joyous vagrants flew. So my, right now, analysis of the poem, without really digging into it more and doing more, is just that there's this interplay between imagination and reality that he's playing with, and that the children causes a kind of tension in what you're supposed to believe about this woman, this beggar woman, and the lives of them. As that, though the kids are saying, no, we don't have a living mother. He's saying there's an unquestionable trace in the face of that beggar woman. That's the thing that makes me think he believes of them. In their fraternal features, I could trace unquestionable lines of that wild suppliant's face. So what is she? She's a weed of glorious features. So I'm pretty confident that it's the same person. He's talking about her. And he sees them, but it could just be his imagination remembering this of the beggar and then superimposing that belief onto these young boys. And the boys are saying, no, this is not who it is. But in another sense, you can say, well, maybe they're lying, and therefore what's happening is she is the mother, and they're just lying, and the adult has a better pull on reality. But I think the other way is probably more likely for Wordsworth, that the children have a kind of almost supernatural ability to understand the world, and he doesn't as an adult. So he thinks and kind of shoos them away, but really he's shooing away some angels. That's my final definition right now. So here's what I do, and I'm just going to log off now. So for those of you, one or two of you that tried this experiment with me, thank you. What I will do is I'm going to read the poem several more times myself, and over days. Like I now have a note, to go over Beggars more in my notebook for poetry. I recommend people do this more often. It's a really great exploration of poetry, which is so much fun. It's like meeting new people all the time, and you don't read a poem reads you. So it's really about how you explore a poem. That's the whole point of good poetry. And then, of course, expanding your diction if you read it out loud, which you should, adding more words to your vocabulary, and even expanding your understanding of words you already know. Okay, so thank you for the couple of you that joined. I might try this some more. This was a lot of fun, but we'll see if other people are interested in this. See you next time.